All right, family and friends in Christ, it's great to see you again. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Conquering COVID-19. We've done several of these so far. We've done one on finances, on emotions. Last week we talked about how to conquer this coronavirus as a community, and try to give different ideas of ways that we can step in and try to look for the different places in our communities that are hurting and try to figure out how we can step in. This week, one of the ways that we wanted to follow up on this series is the reality is that a lot of the tensions that I'm hearing are as simple as just what's happening inside the house. So the reality is that most parents are having to work from home. Not all, but there's a lot of families where now they're having to work from home. And that's hard enough right there, just figuring out those dynamics and the tensions. And we know that kids are now doing school from home. And for a lot of families, this is brand new. Parents have not been homeschool teachers and are trying to figure out lots of crazy things all at the same time. On top of this, stress runs high, tensions are all over the place. Kids aren't picking up their rooms, not doing what they're told, and you want to tear your hair out sometimes. So instead of just telling you all of my own personal story with half of these different things, we brought a couple other families in today who are going to join with us. So I'm going to switch over to the gallery view here. And first, we have Todd and Laura. Todd, Laura, tell us a little bit about your home. Who's at your home? What does this look like? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having us, Regan. So we have two boys, 8 and 10 years old. And Laura works part-time when she's not wrangling the kids. She works part-time for an appraiser. And since this whole COVID stuff started, I've been working from home. I'm an architect, with an office in Denver. So I'm working from home full-time. I have to go in occasionally. I have a project that's under construction. So I have to check the job site every once in a while and make sure they're doing things right on in field. Is
that a work phone call?
Little distraction there.
Probably just a work phone call.
I know.
Yeah.
Work already interrupting things.
There it is.
Yeah. So where was I? Yeah. So boys 8 and 10, we're trying to wrestle them at home. Thankful for sunny days outside when we can let them roam the backyard.
That's awesome. Good. Thanks for being on here with us. I appreciate that. Megan, tell us about your world. Who's at your house?
My husband and I've got a 10-year-old little girl and a 7-year-old little boy. We do homeschool full time, but we've had to kind of take over the parts we've farmed out. The other groups, our homeschool group ended early because going online with little kids just wasn't happening. My husband's a 911 dispatcher, so he's still going in, but he's also a full-time student, so his college classes have moved home.
Yikes. Yeah, that's a lot right there. And then Travis, thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about your world.
All right. So I'm a professional engineer and normally work downtown. And obviously with the stay-at-home orders, I'm working from home now. And definitely little challenges with that, just with the big projects over the internet and everything like that. My wife, Kim, has a full-time work-from-home job that she started about a year ago. She's an accountant and does lots of meetings online and everything. Then we have a dog who wants to be in the video. But a 11-year-old daughter, Taylor, who's in 6th grade. And then a 10-year-old son who's in 4th grade. So, and obviously they're both doing the online learning now, and both their teachers do it a little bit differently, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, awesome. Well, at our house, we have 4 little girls, so their ages are 6 and 8, and then 11 and 13. My wife also runs a supplemental dance education program on Sundays for kids who want to go off and dance in college. I work at the church, and then I also do real estate and loans. So I have a home office, but it's not one of those like with an actual door and a wall. It's just kind of a home office area, and it's real close to the TV area. So it's craziness all the time, all the time. Say it again.
I have one of those offices as well.
Yeah, they're great. Really. Get more done in the laundry room, probably, right? So you find yourself, if you're finding, okay, if you're at home, if you're finding yourself watching this in the bathroom because that's the only place that you can find some privacy, then you're right there with us. You're feeling us. So we hope that this episode will help you a little bit with where you're at today. That's really where we want to end up today, is to give you a little bit of encouragement. We want the people who are out there at home to realize that what you're going through isn't too abnormal. A lot of us are in the same boat, and we're trying different things and experimenting with different things, and hopefully you'll be able to walk away from this with just some different ideas to try with your family, and maybe to end up in a place where we can all remember what's really important as we kind of go through this season. So the first round that I wanted to ask our panel here about would be, just, can you pull back the curtain a little bit and just share with us some of the honest struggles of managing this tension between working from home and schooling your kids? So Megan, how about you start?
It's been interesting because my husband's trying to listen to lectures, and we also don't have an actual office. So he's been hiding in the bedroom, or actually down by the laundry has been quiet sometimes. So he's been down there trying, and then the kids want attention or they want help with school. So they're constantly interrupting. That's been interesting. We kind of started off rough because we started this all during spring break. So the kids got the idea that this was going to be a lot of fun, and we were going to play games with them all day, every day. And then reality came back, and we had to readjust to, like, yeah, you have to do your schoolwork, and daddy still has his schoolwork, and mommy's got to keep the house from falling to pieces while everyone else does their thing. And so.
Yeah, that's good. Travis, what about you? What are some of the struggles and tensions you guys are feeling?
Kind of trying to work out a schedule. We've tried a couple different ones. Like when it first kicked off, we tried to be really rigid of, 9 o'clock, we're going to do this, 10 o'clock, we're going to do this. About a week after that, we gave that up and went into bigger blocks of time. And also just the electronics has been a challenge as well. If I'm on a meeting, my wife's on a meeting, it's really easy just to let the kids entertain themselves. So we kind of let that happen for a week or two, but we've kind of reined that back as well. So still not sure we have found the sweet spot yet, but we keep adjusting. And honestly, it's not too bad, except when the dog barks and we're on conference calls and everything else. Right on cue.
That's awesome. That's great. Todd, Laura, what are some of the struggles you guys are feeling?
Sure. I think for me, I'm really fortunate to have a part-time job that I can do at home. I generally do go into an office, but I have worked from home before when I have the kids for the summer and everything else, so that's not a new hat for me. But having them home and homeschooling them at the same time as trying to work out a schedule around the due dates that my jobs are due has been kind of interesting for me. And I initially found myself trying to work when the kids were doing homeschool, because they had their online programs and they just kind of set them up and said, okay, you guys go at this. Mom's over here working. And granted, I'm at the dining room table and they're down in the living room. And so we are all up kind of in the same space anyway. And I'm finding that they need more help than I thought that they would. I'm leaving my job, going down there to help, and then coming back up and trying to be like, okay, where was I? Where was I? And this would happen so many times in a row, and I just start feeling my blood pressure going up. Like, I can't keep doing this. This is ridiculous. So I found that kind of giving them a space and time to do their work, and then allowing myself a different space and time to do my work, because I don't have to necessarily work all day long. I can carve out a different time, and sometimes I sacrifice something else, but at least I feel like on the days when I can be available, when they're like, hey mom, what is she asking me to do here? Or hey mom, what is this? I can't get this video to work. Then I can be there and I don't have to stop everything I'm doing and rush to the rescue. So
yeah. I think also just the space crunch of all under one roof, all trying to do the same thing. And though we're introverts and we like to be at home a lot of times, being home so much and being all up in each other's business gets tough after a while. And Laura and I, our emotions feed off of one another. So if she starts getting stressed out, I start getting stressed out, and vice versa. And so that can, take us into a spiral pretty quickly. So definitely a struggle for us there.
I know Todd's had moments where the kids are screaming like right behind him when he's been on a call, or they've made funny faces into his Zoom meetings. And so I know he's got some stories there too about them just being right here, and his office is right in the middle of the house. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So has anybody had it like where they've gotten up out of a Zoom meeting and they've done that, thing where all of a sudden they realize that they're still in their pajama pants or, their underwear or anything? You guys haven't had that yet? All right. I thought that'd be funny to end this episode that way, but I figured that would offend too many people. So we're not going there. I'm fully dressed, folks. It's okay. Tensions that we're feeling, I think the same thing. It seems like it comes down to, and I don't know if it's ever said, but it's like, whose stuff is most important? It's like, well, no, I have to work. No, I have to work. Or the, kid has to find a book, or they've got this online thing, or all of a sudden all of this is happening. And then we're like, oh, Piper has a piano class that started 10 minutes ago. All right. And then you're shuffling around everything, and it's tough. There's just not enough hours in the day to do everything the same way that we had been doing. Like something's got to give. And then I think for us, part of that tension that we haven't even really addressed or talked about enough in our home is well, how and when do you make those decisions? Like whose stuff is more important and why? And instead of that being one person dictating who gets to set all that schedule, how are families coming together to make those decisions with everybody in mind? So anyhow, not to get too far ahead of us, but the tensions are real, the struggles are real. Anybody else have any good stories or anything that has, I love that one about Todd while you're working and your kids are going at it in the background. That's, if you could make that happen on this video, that'd be beautiful.
I'm not sure if we can, but we'll see. Yeah, it's been, fortunately, the calls have been on. Everybody's totally understanding of the situation.
Got it. They're locked up in the backyard. You didn't tie them to a tree or anything, have you?
Just a few rolls of duct tape did the trick.
Yeah, good. I think in the children's ministry this last week where they had to wrap them in toilet paper? So maybe that would be a good idea. We could keep them bound up for a little while. So
yeah, we're running low. We couldn't let them perform that activity.
Well, let us know, man.
Hey, we don't have a lot of TP over here.
All right, come over to our house. We've been hoarding. We've got a whole shed full. So just come on over. As a pastor of the church, I just felt it was my job to lead the way in that area. I'm kidding, people at home. I'm kidding. Don't write us hate mail. I do have an extra roll if you need one. What else? Other stresses? What are some other stories? Anybody else? What's been going on in your world? Anything that, or is it too fresh? You can't really laugh at it yet, but in a little while, down the road, you'll look back. What?
When you tell them things like, oh, by the way, this is also canceled, and no, you can't have that play date, and the lock-in at church being canceled, and I felt like we had the longest 2 weeks of, okay, some more bad news. You can't do this. Oh, and Papa's not coming, and you can't do this other thing, and understanding that as an adult, our time frame's a little different than a kid. And we have I don't think most of us have gotten to this point without having some pretty big traumas happen. So we can kind of frame it a little better, but our kids, this is big. And having the patience to deal with their outbursts, because this is big to them. This is important to them. It might be just kickball or softball or whatever getting canceled, but that's important. And that's a lot of big emotions in a little person. So having the patience to put school aside some days and walking them through like, okay, you're upset and you're angry. I know softball was supposed to start today. You were supposed to be with your friends, but we're not. So let's do this other thing. And then we're going to talk about maybe how to not be forever upset about this and put it into some time perspective for them has been the big constant struggle with us, especially with our younger one.
Megan, I love that answer. I was just thinking about it, just on our level, you know, the stress that it puts on us as parents in the household. But I love that you just shifted the conversation to the kids' level of what's it like for them, what's their perspective, what's their stress level. And yeah, I mean, it's enough for us as adults to try to figure that out, but much less for kids. So I'm going to add this one in. This is not planned, but talk about that or think about that a little bit more, either Megan or the rest of us. What's that look like as stress for your kids? Have you been able to identify some of the different pain points for them?
I think what you said, Megan, is great. I think when things first started, our oldest son was already having some anxiety about school. So he was actually excited about this stay-at-home piece of it. So he's like, all right, I get to stay at home, do homeschool. It's been what I've been asking for the last year and a half. Mm-hmm. And as days started going on, he realized it wasn't as amazing as he thought it was going to be, because he still had to do his schoolwork and couldn't just hang out all day long. Yeah, and then I think for our youngest, I think recently he's had a couple of Zoom calls with his classmates, and just seeing him kind of light up when he's talking with his classmates, and understanding that those relationships that he had, and not being able to have those or see his friends on a regular basis has been really a drain on him, and understandably so, not being able to see his friends and buddies and hang out with them. Much more of an extrovert than his older brother, but so trying to see how we can build those gaps, but or seeing those gaps make us realize that we need to find opportunities to have him reach out to his friends a little bit more.
That's good. Travis, what about you?
Well, Todd kind of hit on a little bit with one of the things I was kind of talking about in my introduction. Just how the kids' teachers are handling the situation differently. So Alexander's teacher is doing a daily Zoom conference, which I think is actually keeping that whole class kind of anchored a little bit better. And then he has daily assignments that he has to complete, so that is a little bit easier to keep him focused. My daughter's teacher hasn't done any Zoom conferences at all, so they haven't really reconnected with anybody as a class. And then they just have weekly assignments. So again, that's kind of a little bit more challenging to stay on task when it's just a weekly assignment versus a daily assignment. And then kind of the extracurricular disappointments, obviously no one's playing any sports right now, so that's a huge disappointment for the kids and for me. And but luckily, like my daughter's dance classes, they've gone to online classes as well, so it's normal time and everything, but it's just all online dancing. So that's been pretty cool for her to be able to do that now.
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's see, for us at our household, at least one of ours who's an introvert, she's just had a beautiful opportunity to just all of a sudden hide out in her room. Like all of a sudden, well, a couple hours later, like, we haven't seen you like since Friday. What have you, no clue what they're doing. Hopefully they're still alive, still breathing. Other ones, what do they say? Idle hands are the tools of the devil. You're like, man, what are you getting into? But the reality is, with less structure, because you're trying to do all of these different things at the same time, we're finding that our kids are, struggling with not getting in trouble as much, being as truthful, getting into the snacks. All of a sudden you're like, we bought groceries yesterday. They're gone. Who's been and most of the time it's been me, not my kids, but I let them get blamed for it. So all is well.
Yeah. Yesterday I was cooking dinner and the boys decided to do this, like, what is it, Iron Chef kind of competition thing. I don't know if
Nice.
the right show, but where they make concoctions out of like frozen fruit and smashed up banana and cinnamon and squeezed lemon. And I was desperately trying to like allow them to have this creative time and like they just love doing this, all the while holding back so much anxiety about the wastefulness of all of these beautiful groceries and the state of my kitchen and whether or not I'm going to drink these concoctions when they were made. And I was just about to lose it, but somehow they did. They drank it and they cleaned up and all was okay. But it was just a moment.
That's awesome.
Laura.
What?
For a moment, we thought we were going to lose Laura.
Oh.
I may have had to step outside for a breath of fresh air. Yeah.
You just described about half of the games that I used to do as a youth pastor. All right, so for the next round, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things, and Travis, you kind of alluded to this, so maybe we'll have you start, but what are some of the things that you've tried so far that haven't been working or just hasn't worked out for your family?
Yeah, so like initially we were trying to do a pretty rigid timeline, and so that it was too strict. But when they're in school, they have structured time, and we're trying to just recreate that. And like I said, we realized that doesn't work at home. And so like I said, we've gone a little bit bigger blocks of time, and that's so far so good with that.
Cool. What is bigger blocks of time? What does that mean?
So like instead of like an hour, from 9 to 10, we're going to be doing homework. From 10 to 11, we're going to go for a walk or whatever. We're doing we're trying to keep, 8 o'clock wake up time, which is still later than normal, but it's pretty cool for the kids. And then, but it gives, my wife and I a little bit of time in the morning to get to work and, get some work before they wake up. So now we're just doing, like from wake up to noon, we're just kind of doing like free time. And then from noon to 5, we're doing school time and no electronics time. And so you're either doing schoolwork, you're doing reading a book, or just playing. So no TVs, no telephones, no Chromebooks. So that seems to be working pretty good.
Cool. Megan, what have you guys tried? What's been not working for your family?
So like I said, we started during spring break and the kids kind of got the wrong idea, and it was kind of a free-for-all and they could do whatever they wanted in downtime. And that much screen time is really bad for kids because we kind of let them have unfettered access to whatever. And so we had to buckle that down real quick. Getting back to our normal school schedule, and then we've tweaked it, helped a lot. We kind of went overboard a little bit too and tried to push a little bit too much scheduling and realized that was the wrong way, and kind of we've found our way to a happy medium, I feel like now, where they get I give them everything for the week for school, and then they have it broken down by day, and then any chores or anything on there we'll put that's what you have to have done in order to have your free time, and usually most days they're done by noon. And then they can do within reason whatever. We don't let them have unfettered access to TVs because they just go crazy then. But
sure. Great. Todd, Laura, what has not worked for you guys? What are some of the things that when you've experimented, you've tried and it just has not worked?
Yeah, pretty much every other day we try something new and it doesn't work. Here and there, but I think this ideal vision of that we all be working together at the same time, expectation that the kids would be magically doing their own work on the side and Laura be doing her work and I'd be doing my work. That got thrown out the window after day 2. One. So I think just yeah, trying to find that right balance of schedule has been a struggle. What else hasn't been working?
Another thing is like the teachers assign work that they expect to be completed on a daily basis, but they also assign these optional additional things. And so when the kids zoomed through their work, you know, the first week that we were doing this, I said, well, why don't we try, you know, adding some of this optional stuff in? And our youngest was like, Mom, it's optional. I'm not going to do that. And so I think just even trying to push our kids to do more than what they're willing to do right now is just adding a little too much for our family. Like we encourage them to do the work that they are supposed to be doing, and we try to add in our own fun activities, but to do everything that is suggested for them to do for us is too much. So, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I just add one other struggle is, you know, just with school these days and their assignments is everything is online. Screen time is, I think, just consciously we're aware of it and feel guilty of it in the background, but it's one of these things that they enjoy, and yes, they go crazy at sometimes. We know we have to kind of limit it at that point, but there is, I think, I struggle with, I know, in terms of just so much screen time, and trying to find that right balance of giving them time to do the schoolwork versus time to just play on the computers, what they like to do, various games like Prodigy, and where they're still doing kind of math activities or kind of learning-based things online, connecting with their friends on Facebook Messenger. But just trying to understand what that limit is a just struggle to figure out, and what's right for our family.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things that I've tried in our house that hasn't worked is just to let Kelly take care of everything. And then to just expect that, you know, she'll be happy and healthy and everything will be just fine. So I say that half jokingly, but I think there's a real struggle, at least on my part. Oftentimes in life will change, and it takes me a while to realize, oh, I can't keep just doing life how I've been doing it. Like, this isn't working anymore. Like, all of a sudden, you know, she got pregnant for the first time, and then like all of a sudden you start having these conversations like, life is different. We can't keep doing things the way that we've done them. And you know, we talked about this in a little bit before we started to record, but all of us on the panel, you know, our hats go off to all the single parents out there who are managing all of these tensions. I don't know that we have a ton of suggestions for you. You probably could teach us a lot. So, you know, just know that we're praying for you and your families. And if you're someone else watching it and you're connected to a single parent, know that this is a crazy time of life for them. I mean, you probably already know this, but do whatever you can to step in and help out, you know, with kiddos, even like Todd was saying, you know, make a FaceTime call, like proactively, and say, I'm going to talk to the kid for a half an hour. You go, you know, brush your teeth this week, you know, like, or we could take a shower for the first time, or whatever that looks like. So yeah, a lot of things have not gone well. A lot of things have been tried and have been found wanting. What are some of the different ways that, some of the different things that you've been trying that actually have been working?
Well, I feel like I've answered this a couple times, but yeah, just kind of the bigger block, and just letting them do their schoolwork and stay focused. You know, they know when it's going to happen, so then they can do it. Then when they finish their work, then they can have free time. So that's kind of been what's been successful to us.
Yeah, that's cool. I never had that when I was in school, but I think they started changing it afterwards. But like time blocking, like instead of doing an hour for a class, like you'd have one day where you essentially did like 2, maybe 3 subjects total. and then you'd go bounce back and forth. I don't know how common that is now, but you could do something like that. You could say, hey, we're going to do math twice a week, just on Monday mornings and Thursday afternoons, and just have a larger chunk where they just blast through a bunch of their stuff and they're done with it for the whole week. So that's a great idea, Travis, of just thinking through it from a different perspective. Good. What else? What have people tried that's been working for them?
I think, like Travis mentioned, having a loose schedule, not something super rigid, but just having a schedule for the kids has been really helpful for ours. They tend to thrive with some kind of semblance of a routine. And so we try to have, a chunk of time where we're doing academic time and a very consistent lunch time, and then a time in the afternoon to read and have quiet time. And I think that's been working out really well for our kids. I think also when the weather is nice, being able to kick them outside and just say, look, it's PE time.
That's right.
Go out there and play. And a lot of times we'll go out there too and have lunch with them outside, and just enjoy some nice weather and some time together. Even if it's just a small, 5-minute break for Todd, to go out and just enjoy each other for a few minutes.
That's awesome.
I think the thing that's been helping for us in terms of just perspective, we know we're coming from a privileged viewpoint in terms of what our struggles truly are, in terms of, we still have a job and roof over our head. And this struggle is small in comparison to everybody else's struggle. So I think keeping that in perspective, but also just keeping in perspective that this too shall pass. This isn't we're just trying to keep the mentality that this is a short-term thing, even though it's long in the eyes of every day, feels like an eternity these days. That we're just trying to keep that in perspective and trying to have that grace to understand when we're at our stress levels are high and our kids' stress levels are high, and just knowing that it's going to be okay, and just tomorrow's a new day and a fresh start. And I think just trying to keep that perspective for ourselves and for our kids.
That's really good. Megan, what about you?
Making sure our expectations are known to our kids and keeping that just that conversation going in our house. Like when we did marital counseling 15 years ago, the guy told us, you always have to say, this is going to drive me nuts, and I'm going to tell you this. And that person has to say, okay, I will try not to do that, because that will drive you crazy. But just keeping that conversation going, even with our kids, that, if you say that to me in that way, I don't like that, and that makes me angry. And we all have to live together. We can't get away from each other right now, so maybe we just don't talk to each other like that, or we don't use those certain words, or we, put our socks in the hamper, whatever it is that's driving someone crazy, that we consider each other, has been a really kind of good for keeping things peaceful. And then we've had that conversation a lot, like, hey, we're all here. If you're going to bicker all day, we're just going to be miserable together. So we might as well just cool it, go to your corners, shut the door, and half an hour come out when you like each other again. I might need to go away for half an hour and come out when I like you all again, and that's okay. That's a normal part of living with people. And then we've also had a lot of those conversations about maybe we don't be obnoxious on purpose to provoke our siblings, because that just causes pain for everybody. And it's a normal sibling thing, but normally they can go to their corners, go to different classes, whatever. And we don't have that break. So trying to find that balance of family joy and family not together time sometimes. Quiet time is a really important part of our day where everyone just scatters. The doors get closed. Don't talk to me. I'm not going to talk to you. I love you all. I will love you in an hour. Just let me read for an hour. It tends to, if we don't have that by dinner time, we're all kind of cranky. So
that's so good. Yeah, Megan, that's so good. There's so many things, even in family systems theories, that's really good there, just about having open levels of communication, not necessarily having to convince each other, but being able to be yourself, to be able, this is how this affects me. I'm going to let you know that I can't control you. I'm going to ask you politely not to do this. Now, with our kids, obviously, we have to control them a little bit, but, healthy conversations and keeping things out there in the open. I know that for me, I didn't grow up with that skill, like just naturally. And it's probably one that I'm still having to work on is telling people how I'm really doing internally. I think that I don't know if it's just a Midwest repressed, thing, but there's something where, if times are tough, I'll just try to put my head down and just plow through it. But that's not a healthy way of going about life. So really good thoughts there. All right, for the last kind of round, I just wanted to open it up. What are some things that you would say to encourage families as they're in the midst of these tensions? What are some different things to consider or to try? What would you... All right, I joked around about this beforehand, but this is the question. You have a friend that comes over and they're not allowed to social distance, but they're breaking the rules, and they come over to your house and they're just on the couch with you, and they got the ugly cry going on with the snot coming down, and they're just, that's how we all feel internally at some point in the day. So what do you say to your friends at this point? Megan, it popped back up to you, so I'll let you go first.
A lot of times it's our unmet expectations that are driving us crazy, and we don't know where to put our expectations with this because this is all new and different, and nobody's done this since 1918. And most of those people aren't around to tell us how to get through it. So just thinking about, is this my expectation and what's really triggering me? We have time to sit down and kind of process our own trauma right now, so it's a good time to do that. But it's that tension of knowing what to expect and letting go of that, and realizing that we're all kind of control freaks, and it's okay to be angry now. It's okay to cry. It's okay to lock yourself in the bathroom and cry for an hour if you need to, and just let it out so that you can be that person for your family. And I know as a mom, it's been hard because I'm conscious of the fact that I'm modeling for my kids how to do this. And Mike and I have had a lot of hard in the last 15 years, just personal stuff that's happened. And we didn't know how to handle it. And we've kind of learned how to do that as adults, but we're conscious of the fact that we're teaching our kids how to do this. So if they see us repress and not talk and bottle it, then they're going to do the same thing. Whereas if they see us, if I can be honest with them and say, I'm having a hard day, this sucks, and I'm going to go take 10. And then we'll talk. And if you want to go take 10 and talk about how this sucks for you too, let's do it. That's been kind of the hard, but okay. It's okay to not be okay is what we're telling our kids. And
Megan, I love that. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before too, but yeah, I mean, I didn't go through any of these type of things when I was a kid. We never had COVID-19 when I was in middle school or elementary. And especially back in the Midwest, when my parents went through tough times, I never knew about it. Now as a parent, something happens, and then I'm telling my mom, she's like, yeah, there's times where we didn't have health insurance too. You're like, okay. Now, on one hand, I appreciate that my parents sheltered me from some of this stuff. But on the other hand, I don't know that I had the same opportunities to learn from my parents as our kids have to learn from us today how to go through crisis and how to deal with major things. Because reality is, your kids and my kids, stuff's going to happen in 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the road when they're in college, when they have their kids. And hopefully, I love what you were saying, Megan, there, is that we have the ability to model and to show them, okay, life is different. And here's how we're going to walk through that in a healthy way that respects each other, that respects ourselves, and ultimately honors God with the way that we're living each day. Great. So good, Megan. Who else? Everyone was like, I don't want to talk now. Megan just crushed it.
hardly.
All right, the screen just popped back on and Todd and Laura. So
Yeah, we totally echo and ditto what Megan said. I mean, that's fantastic. I think, yeah, the other alluded to it earlier, just having that abundance of grace and to forgive yourself, to forgive your kids, and just I keep coming back to that concept of modeling for our kids, and even just I know I can do a better job of this in terms of just that cultural expectation of the man is doing the work and the woman is at home. And I know I put some of that pressure onto Laura in terms of, oh, you got this, you got the kids handled with the kids over there while I'm in my corner of the house doing this work over here. And I think if I can do a better job of flipping that and being there for the kids, and I think would be incredible for the boys just to see a better male role model in that light. Where am I going with that? I don't know. But just being a good model for your kids, having that perspective of this too shall pass, having that grace, all important things.
I'll add that I think from some mamas that I've talked to just in the past few weeks, a lot of them are struggling with the homeschooling part of all of this. I mean, staying home is difficult, and then having your spouse there too when you're not used to that, or there's just so many different scenarios going on. But as far as just the mama who's on my couch crying about how difficult the homeschooling part is, I think that I would say to give yourself a lot of breaks. I mean, I feel like we're given these expectations of this is what they should get done, and this is the timeline, and we all have this sense that maybe our kids are falling behind, but I really think they're going to be okay. They're going to be just fine. And I think if we see them struggling and they're really frustrated, to just pull them away and give them a break. And maybe school's done for the day at that point, or maybe it's not. Maybe you just come back to it in the afternoon. But just giving yourself a lot of breaks, and maybe time to go out for a walk, or to go in the backyard and throw a ball to the dog for a little while, and just get that physical tension out of your body. Go into a room and do some deep breathing, do some prayer, just a chance to sort of center yourself or get some pent up aggression out, or some tears, and then jump back in. I think it's just going to be okay when this is all over. I think that we're all going to be okay. Our kids are going to be just fine.
Yeah, even just adding one more thing, and just that private time of trying to carve out those little moments of personal private space and reflection space that you can, wherever you can get it and whenever you can get it. For me, it's getting up before everybody wakes up in the morning, and reading some devotionals, reading some Bible, and doing some prayers, and just having some quiet reflection time before anything gets going in our house. So yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking about off of what you guys just said was that, having flexible schedules is super important, like not just traditional time blocking. My wife works on Sundays. It's like, okay, well, that's not super normal. So it's okay for us if our Mondays are a total, flop day, like it just Saturday or the weekends are different, for us. And so that's good. I don't know if it would make teachers mad or not. So we'll take that risk. But on one hand, I think like if your family's falling apart or your kids are struggling, like let the school go. Like just let the education part of it go. And I would imagine that some teachers out there are like, a pastor is saying this. On the other hand, now I want to talk to that same teacher and say, I know that the teachers who are out there are professionals and have the ability to help our kids catch up if they've missed a little bit of school here at the end of the school year. Like teachers are amazing. They know what they do. They know how to love kids, and they're going to be able to help our kids get back on track in fall. Travis, what's your thoughts? What's some of your wisdom for us?
All right. Well, in the words of the great Clint Eastwood, improvise, adapt, and overcome. So if something isn't working, try something else. So don't be too rigid or afraid to try something else. Last week with the record cold and the snow is hard because we were all basically trapped in the house for an entire week. But as soon as I'm off this call, we're heading to a park and we're going to go play, and that's a huge stress release for everybody. So, but yep, improvise, adapt, and overcome.
There you go.
If you can name that movie, I'll give you $1.
I don't know it. I don't know it. Somebody in the
Heartbreak
chat
Ridge.
thread. Huh?
Heartbreak Ridge.
There you go. We've all been wondering what to watch next, so now we know. What else? Any other words of encouragement for people? And one thing I also thought too, like in our own family, is just recognizing that, we have 4 daughters and each of them are so different from each other. So parenting is different, like what it takes to motivate one kid, what it takes to discipline what is different from kid to kid, and how much I can let one kid go versus having to watch, and stay over the shoulder of another kid. I mean, it's very different. So for us, there's, being conscious of that or conscientious of that is really important in our family.
We've been trying to do a lot of one-on-one time with the kids and like, well, what do you want to learn that we haven't had time to teach you? What's interesting to you? And they've surprised us. My son wanted to learn how to cook. He's sick of waiting for someone to make him stuff, so he wants to learn. And my daughter wanted to start learning more about woodworking, so they're out in the garage, and it's, no, you're not coming out here. This is me and daddy's time. And no daddy in the kitchen right now. This is mommy and me's time. She's taught me how to turn on the stove. And just those little moments where it's just the 2 of you, since you're always all together, the time to isolate is really kind of given them something to look forward to, but also built that bond in a way maybe we don't have time to do if we're running all over the place.
That's great. Good.
Yeah, we're putting the kids to work over here a little bit. They're helping weed the garden, grow a new garden, just from seeds and stuff. And that's been kind of fun. I feel like we found some activities to do as a family that we probably were too busy to do in years past together. We just try to rush through and get things done, but it's been kind of fun to try to find new things to do like that. So, and put the kids to work at the same time. So
Actually clean up their stuff, and having that team mentality of we're all in this together, we're all working together. Yes, this pile of stuff that you guys keep leaving out is driving me bonkers, so let's work together and clean it up. So yes, Megan, you might be creating those moments with your kiddos of these woodworking things, and so in 20 years when they look back on COVID-19, they'll have these glorious memories of cooking with their mom, and our boys will probably just be like, man, when we were stuck inside, I remember all we had to do was just pick up after ourselves.
We do that as a part of our school. Normally it's I'm not your maid time before they're allowed any electronics. So your schoolwork's done, that's great. Go clean up your stuff if you want free time. And if you don't, then just play with the stuff that's a mess on the floor. Don't ask me for TV time.
Yeah, that's great.
I joke about it, but
that's the normal. They're still bad at it right now. It's the expectation. They're just bad at it, so.
Yeah, I joke, but I really think it is about trying to create those little moments or little magical moments that are just gonna stick into their brains and into their memories. And when they look back on this, they have those the fond memories outweigh the tension and the struggles.
That's good. I think there's so much pressure that we put on ourselves, during this time, that so much of that just has to be pushed off. It's like, okay, so what if the house isn't clean by the end of the night? Like, just turn off the lights, we'll get to it tomorrow, or like, but and then communicating, to figuring out what does that look like? What are some of the things that you can live without? What are some of the things that you can live without? How do we make sure that we can still hug each other at the end of the night? Good. Any other thoughts before we sign off here?
I would just add that that same mentality of not being so hard on ourselves in terms of all the things, the creative explosion ideas that we see on social media. And, this parent is doing this awesome drawing with their kid, and this parent is doing this thing with their kid, and I got to keep up with them. So I got to do these 18 other things in addition to the other 37 other things I have to do in my daily activities, but just kind of keeping that perspective of got to do what's right for my family. And if I can do that, incorporate it, great. If not, that's okay too.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing is just to simplify your life, not add more things to it.
I find sometimes that I have to, like Megan was saying, sometimes I get to do some modeling for my kids. Not my beard modeling, but my apology modeling. There's times where, I have to, at the end of the night, come to my kid and say, hey, I was too strong. I wasn't as loving or as kind. I wasn't patient with you the way that, you don't deserve to be treated that way, and I think there's a lot of great conversations that we can have with our kids that can lead to some really great spiritual moments with our kids. If we're willing to take them and to lead with some vulnerability, some honesty. I think those moments can go a long ways for a kiddo. So I would encourage you at home to practice those too. Give yourself some grace, like was talked about. None of us are perfect parents. None of us have this all figured out. We're all doing the Clint Eastwood say them again.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
What he said. We're all doing that. We don't have this down perfect. Our scripting isn't perfect. So it's okay, but learn from each other and figure out how to love each other well and keep pointing each other back to God, essentially, because I do believe that God has given us the answers. He's taught us how life works. And when we stray from that, when we stray from, what we call the kingdom of God, that's when we find that everything breaks down around us. And so one of the key things I think in these times here is to model for our kids what it looks like to figure out how to live a life that follows Jesus's way of doing things, even in the midst of chaos, and epidemics and pandemics. And when the world falls apart around us, what does that still look like for us to cling tight to our faith and to follow God? So any last words, friends? All right. Well, Laura, Todd, Megan, Travis, I just really appreciate each one of you being awesome parts of our church and in our children's ministry and loving on kids and the work that you're doing in your own families. So thanks for spending an hour with us. And go at it. Go love your kiddos.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, guys.